Hey gang, it's Ted Gravlin with today's TEDcast, and today I wanted to show you how two different companies of different sizes and different types can do their accounting, and one of them is kind of cooking the books, and they might not even know they're doing it, and they might not, it's not on purpose, they're not trying to like avoid something or whatever, but they tend to fool themselves and think they're doing differently than they think they are. And the question comes from, which comes up fairly often, where some company, usually someone who's a smaller company, let's just say been in business a year or two, and has started to maybe gain an employee or two, hired a helper, maybe started to hire an office person, and suddenly realizes, I don't know if I know my numbers, and then they ask a question like, hey guys, what should my margin be? And then of course a bunch of people jump in and say, here's mine's this and mine's that, and here's what you should shoot for and all that stuff. And some of those numbers that you hear from someone may or may not apply to what you're doing because different companies of different sizes are going to answer different ways. And let me explain what I mean. If somebody's running a company that's above $4 or $5 million bucks, then my assumption, because I've done this for a long time, is that they're probably not leaving anything out. They're not like forgetting to pay somebody that should be paid or something, because of course they've got enough employees where if they weren't paying somebody they wouldn't work there anymore. Where if you're a small company where the owner is doing some of the jobs, he may not be paying himself for those jobs, and of course his numbers will look different because he has an employee himself that's not getting paid, and or different items like that. So let's just run through real quick where the numbers fit to two different size companies. Like let's run a smaller company and a bigger company just to see, so that you'll understand when someone gives you those numbers of what their margin is, why you don't necessarily want to listen to it, and you want to learn how to do it the right way. Even if you're a small company, when I'm working with my clients, first thing we do is everybody acts like they're a big company. That's the first thing we have to do, because that's what you want to be. So you have to act like the company you want to be, not the one you are, and quit fooling yourself and saying I'm doing really great when you're not. So let's just run through what the numbers might look like. So of course we have the accounting equation, which if you've seen my YouTube channel, I do a lot of videos where I put this on the whiteboard. So different parts of the accounting equation, and I simplified it. There's more stuff that could be in here, but just to give you an example of how to keep it simple for the video. So first, top line revenue, and then of course direct costs and equipment, labor, commission, financing charges. Then of course we end up with the gross profit or margin, which is what we're looking for in this particular question to answer. We're going to leave the overhead and the net profit. That comes out later, so we'll just kind of ignore that for now, because the question is about the growth or the margin, right? So company A is running a pricing scheme where they're charging $10,000 for a system, and the costs are about $2,500 for the equipment. Okay, so they got about a 4x markup, which by the way is not necessarily the way you're supposed to set your pricing, but just to give you some reference, they're running about 25% for their equipment costs. They're also paying about 10% in labor. They're paying a 10% sales commission, because some are 8, some are 12, but we'll call it 10. And then they pay about 5% in financing charges when they sell most of their jobs. So we're going to run it out like they're doing that. So they got $10,000 coming in revenue. They take out their direct costs, it's 50%. They have a 50% margin, and they got $5,000 left. Out of the $5,000, they can pay their overhead and end up with a net profit, hopefully. And I'm pretty sure they're going to end up with a net profit with that kind of margin. Now, how much depends on overhead, depends on a few things like that. Now, realize when they get to this number, they've already paid everybody. Everybody's paid. The labor guys got paid, the installers got paid, the guy who sold the job got paid. There's no other money needs to come out of there before it drops through the overhead to the bottom line. Now let's go to small company over here, where these guys probably are a bigger company. They're paying everybody. They're doing all the things. They're not skipping any steps. They got it all figured out. We got a smaller company over here, and this is the guy I'm talking about. He's probably a smaller operator. This is really common. I have this conversation a lot, where they have themselves a helper, not necessarily an installer. They're kind of installing it themselves, but they hire their nephew 2 days a week to come over and help them, or something like that. They're not paying sales commission because they sold it themselves. They're not doing financing yet because they don't think they're big enough for that. They're not worried about that yet. So they're just leaving all that stuff out. And of course, they're also telling themselves the story that says, well, I have low overhead. I don't need to charge this much. I charge less. So they're charging $7,500 for the same kind of equipment. So when we work that out, this guy says he works it out 33% of his equipment cost. He's got 5% for labor instead of 10 because he's just paying the nephew helper or whoever he's got going working for him, part-time or even full-time, but a lesser guy. He's not paying a full install crew. Of course, no sales commission because he's keeping the money. He sold it himself. And of course, no financing charges because he just deals with customers who, use a Visa card or write checks for cash or something like that, okay? So, this guy says, I have a 62% margin. And this guy says 50%. And you're like, wow, I want to be like this guy. I want 62%. But not really, because he made $46.50. This guy's got $5K. Now, it's pretty close, but here's the difference. This guy here didn't pay anybody yet. He hasn't paid labor, really. He hasn't paid sales commission. He hasn't paid financing. He's leaving a bunch of stuff out of here, and it makes this number, 62%, look really good. Look, so he's kind of cooking the book. He doesn't mean to. He's not saying, oh, I'm going to hurry up and, rub my hands together and twirl my little mustache and pull one over on the IRS, because eventually he'll pay taxes on this. But for the sake of the discussion in the groups, when people are saying, what's your margin, this guy sounds like a freaking genius. And this guy over here is like, well, he's not doing as good. But, again, this guy hasn't paid anybody. Here's the problem he's going to run into. As soon as he grows a little bit, like past the truck he's got or the 2 trucks he's got, once he gets to 3, 4, 5 employees, he's got to start paying these people. And all of a sudden, at this pricing, with this number and all of these things working out, that $46.50 is going to drop real fast down to $3K. Because he's going to start paying a lot of money out to these guys. So it all comes down to understanding how each number fits into the whole scheme here and how you set your pricing based on that, the different pricing. So if you want help with this, this is all I do most of the day is help guys with operational excellence. And what we're doing is we show clients how to do this the right way. So if you want help with that, let me know. But ultimately, this is how you can cook your books on this side without really meaning to. And it's not like you're a bad person. You're not you just don't sometimes know any better, or your thinking is set in a way that says, well, I don't have all the things this guy has and I can just do it this way. Well, you can, but you cannot grow if you're doing it like this. And my opinion is that for most of us who go in this business to be contractors, we're trying to grow our way out of still being the installer and the sales guy and everything for the rest of our lives. Because if you're those key positions that have to happen every day for the company to make any money, then you're not really running a business. You're self-employed, but you're not really running a business that can operate when you're not there. And my goal was always, and it's to help my clients, is to always get myself so that the business can operate without me, and the customers that are doing business with us have the same experience whether I'm there or not. So we get the same people answer the phone, same people run the calls, we've got installers installing stuff, we've got people selling stuff, and I don't necessarily need to be involved in all of that minutia. I have bigger things to do, like setting up a training program, hiring people, running numbers like this, strategic thinking. That's a much better place to be for an owner, is to be thinking in the big picture strategically than to be out there running around trying to save a buck on the install and the sales commission and stuff like that. So if you want some help, let me know, and we'll talk soon.